Hi, everyone.
Does this work? This works. Cool. So the topic of my talk was supposed to be what's new and what's coming from Solflare, but I decided to change it at the last moment to prove you weren't always this poor. You're going to see in a bit why. So first of all, I'm Vidor, I'm the co-founder of Solflare. At Solflare, I mostly deal with technical stuff, so if you want to have some fun technical conversations, just hit me up later. By the way, quick show of hands. Is everyone in the room a developer, or at least considers them a developer? Okay, I expected more for a developer stage. A few developers, did anyone ever hit an RPC endpoint, query the blockchain state? Okay, the few of you. How many of you tried reconstructing some of Solana's history, like listing the list of historic things that you did? Okay, so for the three of you, this is going to be a super fun talk. For the rest of you, let's see, maybe. One of the core values at Solflare, we call moving mountains, because we always fearlessly just head first go into solving really hard technical issues from first principles. We never accept no as an answer, and we never accept that something is not possible to build, despite all of the narrative that's being built up around something. We know Solana is like a super fast blockchain. It produces massive amounts of data, and indexing that data was, I think, attempted by many teams for different purposes. We, as a Solana wallet, have nailed down on this really important use case while talking with our users. We have a bunch of user interviews, and we never build what we feel like building. We always build stuff that our users ask us. And I think over 100 interviews, one of the most common things that we heard was, okay, cool, you guys are building a wallet, I see my balances, but it would be super interesting for me to be able to see historically how rich or poor I was. And if you think of it more deeply, it makes perfect sense. Solflare is a financial app. It's like your banking application. Imagine that you use a banking application that doesn't show you the history of the assets that you had or their value at any point in time. So essentially, like a financial app without the feature that I'm about to announce here is not really a financial app. It's just like a calculator, I don't know, really unsophisticated. This is still not live. It will become live in the following weeks. But essentially, the feature that we built is we built a super optimized way of reconstructing your portfolio's value over time from the beginning of Solana. So if you have a wallet that's like 5 years old, our threshold was that it should create a chart like this in under 5 seconds. We've looked at many other solutions that claim to have this feature, and they were either very slow, very incorrect, required payment for this, and then on top of that being very slow and incorrect. So we decided to challenge the status quo, try solving one of the hardest engineering problems in Solana, and we essentially built this. This little chart shows you the dollar value of all of your assets that you had in your wallet. Let's do some live demos. I have a few wallets that I want to show here. So let me quickly reload. So I mentioned that our target was to reconstruct, and the internet's a bit slow here. Our goal was to, when a new wallet comes, most of the new wallets that come, they don't have any history. So creating this chart for them is easy. But for example, if you use other wallets and come to Solflare, import your seed phrase, our requirement was that we want to be able to reconstruct this chart in less than 5 seconds. We store all of that data, and every subsequent time that you come, all of the subsequent updates should be less than 100 milliseconds. So for example, you can see my wallet that I use daily. We can see that the straight lines are very indicative of me being in stables. And at some point, let's say beginning of end of January 2024, I bought a very volatile asset that sort of shapes the rest of the chart. If we look, for example, what the highest peak of my portfolio value was, it will be a very peculiar date, 20th of January this year. You probably all know what happened in January this year. Let me show you some other very interesting wallets where you can see these features. So this is the wallet where I received my bonk airdrop. At some point, I was super rich. I had like 70 grand in bonk. Today, not that, like around 20 grand. And we can see the value changing. Another interesting wallet that mostly dealt with stables. So you're receiving stables, you're sending stables, and it tracks all of the balance changes across time. I can show you another success story. This is not my wallet, but it's interesting to show. This trader effectively went from like $10,000, traded up to almost $3 million, and then lost it all back to 180 grand. So this is a reminder that there were points in your life where you were rich. Okay, so this has been one of my sort of passion projects that I've been working with the team. A lot of engineering has been put into this, and I want to sort of walk you through some of the engineering challenges that we were solving during this time. So first of all, like your first touch point when you want to fetch some historic data is obviously RPCs. And then you would use one of the two, either get transaction or get signatures for address RPC methods, and then do a very complex orchestration of those calls, try to do them as efficiently as possible, and then sort of display the data. But what actually happens when an RPC provider receives one of those calls that require serving historic data? It actually figures out, okay, my local node doesn't have this data because it's probably very old, and I need to fall back to something that's called Bigtable. And this is one of Solana's pain points, is that a lot of the historic data is stored in Google Bigtable. So just to put it into perspective, hosting this Bigtable instance costs between $50,000 and $70,000 every month. It's way expensive. So we decided that that's definitely not going to work for us. We're not going to vendor lock ourselves in, and that we, on top of that, we want much better performance. So we decided to clean up the Solana ledger. The Solana ledger is made up out of blocks, out of transactions, and there's this sort of pivot table that connects like a transaction signature to like the actual transaction object. We were looking at the data, and we figured out that we could essentially clean up more than 80% of the data, leaving us with 20% around, let's say, 200 terabytes of data that we can store into storage that's much faster than like hard drives or SSDs. 200 terabytes is somewhere within the possibility of storing it into NVMEs, meaning that the access is within sub-millisecond to this data. So that's the first thing we did. We figured out that we needed to totally change the base layer of how everything worked, and it wasn't sustainable for us to be paying $70,000 per month for a Bigtable instance to do this. It didn't fit our requirements, so we rebuilt it. The next thing, we looked at the users that are coming to Solflare, their transaction patterns, the way that they're behaving, and we looked and we figured out, okay, if we take all of these users that we have and then we try to synchronize all of those balances every time slot, it's also not going to be sustainable. It would be petabytes of bandwidth, and most often those balances wouldn't even change. So it's like, it was not the best way to do it. So we decided to only look for specific changes of specific accounts. So for example, when you send your Sol account changes. When you send some USDC, your USDC account changes. When you stake some Sol, your Sol goes from your Sol account to your stake account. Those are all balance changes that affect your overall portfolio. along with the baseline RPC changes that we did, this allowed us to implement algorithms that would, in parallel, fetch all of users' transactions, allowing us to hit the 5-second first load benchmark. We can, in parallel, fetch millions of transactions with insane performance that lets you see that super nice chart every time you log into your wallet. We also implemented some algorithms and heuristics where some of your balance changes, for example, when you're doing a swap, you're giving one asset, you're receiving other asset. That points to like a specific behavior that's like swapping, for example, meaning that your balance changes, your value remains the same, but we get that new data point and we get the price of that asset at that point. So that's the third thing. When we figured out that we built this whole balance change indexing super performant piece of software, we're like, okay, we know how much bonk you had at any point in time, but how can we figure out in a really precise way how much that bonk was worth in any point in time? So we decided to apply some of the same algorithms. But before I go there, maybe it might be worth mentioning what's actually a price of something. A price can either be something that someone's willing to pay at this moment for something, or a price can also be, okay, what price is the last sale of something or purchase happened. So we opted for the latter, where we said, okay, we consider a price being something where the last trade happens, similarly to how NFTs considered prices, or at least was the last sale of an NFT. So we built some generic algorithms that are able to parse all markets on Solana. So we didn't specifically build a parser for Radium, for Pump Fund, for Orca, for some. We built a generic algorithm that's able to deduce based on the balance change activity the price of an asset that's even being purchased or sold. And we use the same set of algorithms for fetching and indexing balances for prices. So essentially, this gave us all the very precise price data from the beginning of Solana until now, across all versions of all markets, all AMMs, everything. We need to do some post-processing on this price data because anyone can create a market, and that market initially created can be massively imbalanced. For example, although Sol is, let's say, $150, someone could say, okay, let me provide some liquidity at Sol at $300. And that's obviously not the price, although a trade at that price point might have happened. So what we did there is we volume weighted all the price data. We've seen what are the prices where all volume converges and took those price points. And then obviously there are some outliers as well. So we ran linear regression algorithms to figure out, okay, this is the range that we will feel comfortable with the price. And this gave, within 3 decimals, precision accuracy of the price data compared to the prices on Binance. This is insane. This means that Solana is very fast and markets are very efficient. So on one hand, we have super optimized RPC endpoints, or they're not even RPC endpoints anymore. They're just infrastructure that we rebuild for our purpose. On second, we have an efficient way of fetching, storing balances, and we have prices of all of those assets. So if we take the tree and overlap them, that's essentially the line that tells you how much money you had at any point in time, essentially from Solana's beginning. What's next? While building this, we obviously wanted to have a nice line chart that shows the amount of money that you had, but we also figured out that this is critical infrastructure that hasn't been built publicly or openly in the space. And the performance can be leveraged to create any sort of financial flows, plot your future spending, analyze your habits, allow activity that's super user-friendly, filterable, anything. Allow calculating your P&L, calculating taxes. So essentially what ended up being a super cool initial feature ended up being infrastructure for a lot of other things that we're going to build on top of this. And there's going to be a lot more coming from there. I want a brief reminder. We have 2:45 at the main stage. We have another big announcement. So if you have time, be there. And although I might not deserve an applause, the gentleman that actually participated in building all of this cool tech definitely deserve one. So. Awesome. So I might cut it short a bit. Leaves time for questions. It can be related to this, or it can be anything Solflare related. Who's handling the mics? We have a question here. Yeah.
Hi. So 2 questions. First is, so you probably built some of the most used tables on Dune and Flipside. If you're going to do any wallet analysis, you need the token balances and prices.
Sorry, can you turn it up a bit? I don't hear the guy. Apologies.
Trial. Can you hear now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So you've probably built the most used tables on Flipside and Dune Analytics. If you're going to do any wallet analysis, you just need those tables that you mentioned, token balances and the prices, basically. Can you still hear? Can you still not hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
But one important thing, we didn't use Dune or Flipside.
Yeah, I totally got it.
Yeah.
You built your internal system to fetch them, and my related question was going to be, do you have any ambitions in the data space? That's the first question.
So is the question, are we going to publish?
Yeah, are you going to do any other, first you have all this data, you can share them first. Second, you can do more probably, you can venture more into certain analytics. Do you have any ambitions? Is that what you built, or is it just specifically for this feature of the product?
Actually, funny enough, we're heavy users of Dune Analytics, and we have our private data set that we formed in Dune based on this price data, that we use it for our own purposes. I was bugging the Dune team to build this for me, but they didn't, so I decided, fuck it, let's do it. And right now we use this for our own analytics purposes, but if there's appetite from the community or requests, we would happily make this public.
Cool. Second question is, I love Solflare, been using since maybe inception, probably not, but
2020.
Very long. What is it?
It was 2020.
Yeah, somewhere around there,
nice.
Maybe May, something like that. Yeah,
awesome.
The future, I guess this is a future request, or if technically plausible or possible. So when you're using desktop apps, desktop browser wallets, you always have to connect your ledger via cable. And I was wondering if it's technically possible to do Bluetooth on that, because most ledger devices have Bluetooth. And I was wondering if it's technically even possible to do it via browser, just out of curiosity. And I guess that's also a feature request if you can have it. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So I think it's possible to do Bluetooth connection with the browser. We would need to check. Obviously, there's no libraries that support that, and we would need to build that in-house. For example, our ledger support on mobile, there weren't any libraries, so we built the whole Bluetooth stack for our mobile app. And that's one of our advantages why people say that ledger devices, the Bluetooth ones, work so great on mobile. We still rely on Web USB, and I think U2F was discontinued on Chromium and Chrome-based browsers. Unfortunately, Firefox is not that good with USB. But I also know a fun story that I heard from Google that their USB implementation was built by a very passionate single developer over a summer camp project. So I guess the whole industry is relying on that one person of USB working well on Chrome. You have a question there?
Hello, test. Yeah, great talk, by the way, and congratulations to the team on such a feat. I know that dealing with historical data is a pain, as you mentioned. So whoever dealt with the big table, sapoba for you.
Thank you.
I have 3 questions. The first question is, how much time did it take to, do all of this stuff? The second question is, which internal database you're using? And the third question, are you thinking of having a service or an API to access this data? I would definitely be one of your first customers.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
thank you again.
So thank you for the questions. So for the first question, I want you to guess, how long do you think this took us to build?
How many people?
3 or 4?
7 months? 8 months?
8 months. So I think we built it in under 2 months.
2. That's really cool.
With a lot of background knowledge in the problem space. If we needed to do some upfront discovery on the problem space and trying to figure out what the actual problems were, it could probably take longer. But I think it was it was super hard, but a clear execution path for us. And all the pieces just fell together. And we built it that way. Sorry, what was the second one?
The second question is, which internal database are you using to store all of this data?
So we're actually using, so what we built here, this is not possible to run on any cloud provider in terms of the actual raw data. So the original data that we fetch that quickly is stored on bare metal, but we don't really like managing our own databases, so we rely on Google Cloud to manage our SQL-based databases. They're all optimized, partitioned, distributed, and everything. And we just figured why would we do double work when Google can help us? Google Cloud can help us with that.
Any specific engine in the Google?
Can you help me with what was the engine? Tell it once out loud, and I'll just repeat it because of the mic. Is
It's not built almost like a cache on top of the raw data we're keeping on bare metal. Oh, thanks. So the answer is that we're basically using GCP's Cloud SQL with the latest Postgres. And we've actually found that even though we're using it as only like a top level abstraction, almost like a cache layer between us and the bare metal data we're pulling, we've actually found that it can take quite a beating, and there's a lot of data in there. Right now it's in the terabytes. It's probably grown so much over the past week that I don't know how big it is now, but it's huge, and the performance is still fine for most uses.
Awesome, thanks. Another important thing to mention is that we've been running this in the background for almost a month. So all of the Solflare wallet users that use it at least once every week or maybe once a month, whenever the next time they open the app, is going to be super quick, full-blown portfolio history. Thank you. There was the third one, but I forgot.
Yeah. So will there be a possibility for this to be a service? API?
Oh, yeah. So we build this for in-house purposes, but if it's something that massively moves the ecosystem forward, helps builders not needing to waste or invest all of this time to rebuild everything, we'll be happy to provide some experimental access from the start.
All right, consider me a first subscriber. I mean, it sounds awesome.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the questions. Any more questions? Cool. I think we're done. Thanks, everyone.